This is the question that millions of people were asking before Didier Deschamps reached the microphone. Was that referee good enough? Was that penalty real? Did France just lose a World Cup semifinal because a Salvadoran official awarded a spot kick for contact that happened when the Spanish player didn't even have the ball? That's what was already trending. That's what was already filling comment sections and television studios in the social media timelines of supporters from Paris to Lyon to every corner of the world where someone had stayed up to watch France play Spain in Arlington, Texas. The question was already there. And then Deschamps walked in, sat down, and said the thing that put it in the record permanently. If I say something, I'll look like a sore loser because we lost. But I ask you the question, does the referee have the level required to officiate a semifinal? There's the penalty, but it's not just that. That's just on top of it all. I have nothing against tonight's referee, but ask yourselves that question. He said it carefully. He said he wasn't going to answer it. He acknowledged that France were second best. He said Spain showed something extra and that he had to give credit to the opponent. He called his team's attacking expression below what it should have been. He said Mbappe and Dembélé combined for only 5 shot attempts, worth a fraction of a goal in expected value. He accepted the defeat, and then he sat back and left the question hovering in the room like something nobody could pick up and nobody could put down. Does the referee have the level required to officiate a semifinal? That sentence belongs to this tournament now. So what really happened in Arlington on Tuesday evening, and why has a 2-0 defeat in a match where most analysts agreed Spain were the better team produced one of the most discussed post-match press conferences in World Cup history? Let's go through it properly. 2 tracks simultaneously, the football and the controversy, because both are real. Both deserve honest examination, and the honest examination of both is what most coverage of this match has failed to provide. Start with the football, because the football, examined without the penalty in the picture, is the story of Spain reaching a World Cup final for the first time since 2010 by being genuinely, comprehensively brilliant. Luis de la Fuente's side has allowed a single goal across 7 World Cup matches, 6 clean sheets, a new tournament record, surpassing the marks previously shared by 5 separate nations across the competition's history. Unai Simon has been exceptional. The defensive structure, marshaled by Aymeric Laporte and Pau Cubarsí, has been as organized as anything this competition has produced. Spain have beaten Morocco, Belgium, Austria, and now France to reach the final without ever looking genuinely troubled. They are the deserving finalists. That is not in dispute. France, by contrast, had been magnificent before Tuesday. 16 goals across 6 matches before the semifinal. Comparisons to the greatest French sides in the competition's history. Mbappe on 11 contributions across the tournament. Dembélé, the Ballon d'Or winner, playing with the freedom that only a world-class squad around you can provide. And then, against Spain, something went wrong that was partly Spain's excellence and partly France's technical failures, and partly, and this is where the honest examination requires courage, a 22nd-minute penalty decision that Spain's coach, Luis de la Fuente, asked about the incident, declined to comment on directly. He said he didn't want to say anything about the referee because he had been criticized for doing exactly that before. He said he preferred to talk about football. That specific non-answer from the coach of the team that benefited from the decision tells you something about how comfortable everyone was with what happened.
Here's the specific incident. Lucas Digne, France's left back, was tracking a Spanish cross that had dropped loose in front of the French goal. He controlled it with his chest, turned 180 degrees, and attempted to play the ball upfield. From his blind side, coming at pace, Lamine Yamal arrived. Digne's kicking motion, already in progress before Yamal reached him, struck the Spanish winger in the torso. Contact in the penalty area. An offensive player was touched. Referee Ivan Arcides Barton Cisneros of El Salvador immediately pointed to the spot. Mikel Oyarzabal converted. Spain led 1-0. Was it a penalty? By the letter of the law, contact with an offensive player in the area, yes, technically. But here's the detail that makes Deschamps' question something more than sore loser language. At the exact moment Digne's foot made contact, Yamal did not have possession of the ball. He was running onto a ball that was no longer there. Digne was not dispossessing him, he was not preventing him from reaching a ball he could reasonably have reached. He was executing a clearance, and Yamal ran into the clearance from a position of not having the ball. The law of the game says denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity or impeding a player's movement to the ball. Yamal had no ball to move to. Whether that makes it a penalty is genuinely debatable. What is not debatable is that Barton made the decision immediately, without hesitation, without a VAR review, without the kind of careful consideration that a penalty in a World Cup semifinal demands. Now, here's the counter-argument. Because this channel doesn't hand out accusations for free, and the honest examination requires putting the strongest possible case for the other side on the table. Spain were the better team before the penalty was awarded. Their pressing was stifling France's build-up. Their defensive organization was finding every gap. Mbappé was being marked out of the match. Even without the penalty, there is no compelling footballing evidence that France were heading toward a goal. The penalty changed the tenor of the game, as Deschamps himself acknowledged, but the evidence does not support the conclusion that France would have won a 0-0 match or even maintained parity with a fully functional attacking display. Pedro Porro's second goal, in the 58th minute, came from Spain's sustained pressure, not from a referee's error. Spain won the match comprehensively. The penalty was the trigger, it was not the full story. And then there is the question of Giroud. The France substitute came off the bench and committed a challenge on Rodri, a challenge that was reckless enough that multiple analysts at pitchside said they expected a red card. He was shown yellow. Had he been sent off, the match would have ended 11-10, with Spain's second goal still to come. France benefited from a referee's decision too. Deschamps acknowledged this in his own press conference. He said there were some favorable calls as well. That acknowledgement is what separates Deschamps' question from the accusations of Hossam Hassan or Remo Freuler. He is not saying the referee was corrupt. He is not saying the match was stolen. He is asking specifically and carefully whether the official was at the level the occasion demanded. Those are different claims, and the distinction matters.
Think about what it means for this to be the question that defines Deschamps' final World Cup press conference as France's head coach. 14 years, the 2018 World Cup won in Russia, the 2022 final lost on penalties in Lusail, 3 consecutive semifinals, 4 consecutive quarterfinals, and now in the 26th World Cup match of his managerial career, a new all-time record, surpassing Helmut Schoen's 25, he ends not with a celebration or a straightforward defeat, but with a loaded question he refuses to answer. The 26 matches record is worth dwelling on for a moment because it carries an emotional weight that the officiating controversy risks obscuring entirely. No manager in the history of the World Cup has taken a nation as far, as consistently, for as long as Deschamps has taken France. Not Schoen, not Zagallo, not Lobanovsky or Cruyff in his coaching incarnation. 26 matches, 14 years, 1 title and 3 more appearances in the final stages. The man stepping down after this tournament has more World Cup experience from the touchline than any human being who has ever lived, and he spent the press conference of his penultimate match as France's coach asking a question about a referee from El Salvador. William Saliba was injured during the match. The defender, who has been one of France's most important players throughout this campaign, limping off in circumstances that will require assessment before the third-place playoff against Spain's semi-final opponents. Mbappé said afterwards they didn't know how to hurt Spain, an honest and quite damning self-assessment from a player who has been one of the tournament's most influential individual performers across the previous 6 matches, and who was, on Tuesday, effectively neutralized. But here is the shareable sentence. Here is the one that matters beyond this match, beyond this tournament, beyond the specific argument about whether Lucas Digne's clearance constituted a foul on a Spanish player who had no ball. A technology introduced to correct clear and obvious errors chose not to review a decision that changed the outcome of a World Cup semifinal, and the man who coached the most World Cup matches in history ended his last full press conference asking whether the person who made that decision was good enough to be there. That is the sentence. That is where everything converges, not in accusations, not in conspiracy, in a question from the most experienced World Cup manager who ever lived, in the institution that appointed the referee, in the context of a tournament where that institution has defended every controversial decision through the same formula. Unfounded allegations, nobody can question our integrity, the process worked as designed. Now here is what the data shows, because the data deserves its place alongside the emotion. Argentina have received more VAR interventions in their favor across this tournament than any other semifinalist. England had a penalty denied against Norway by VAR. Algeria filed a formal complaint after their match against Argentina. Egypt filed a formal complaint after their match against Argentina. Belgium filed a formal complaint about the Balogun process. Switzerland's coach said he didn't know the rule existed that eliminated his team. Germany's disallowed goal against Paraguay was described by experienced former professionals as one of the softest VAR calls they'd seen. And now France, after a semifinal in which a borderline penalty was awarded immediately and without VAR review, have a manager asking publicly whether the referee was up to the job. What connects all of those moments is the same gap between what the institution says, complete impartiality, nobody can question our integrity, unfounded allegations have no place in our sport, and what the teams experiencing the decisions say. The cumulative experience of the tournament's most significant officiating moments has produced a pattern that the individual defense of any single decision cannot address, because the pattern is not about any individual decision, it is about trust. And trust cannot be rebuilt by defending one call at a time when the accumulation of calls has already told a different story. Spain are in the World Cup final. They will face either Argentina or England. 6 clean sheets, a new record. Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Oyarzabal, a team of genuine brilliance and youth, and the kind of collective organization that makes them difficult to beat for any opponent, regardless of refereeing decisions. Spain deserve to be there. That cannot be taken from them. And France are out. Deschamps is stepping down. Mbappe's third World Cup has ended in the semi-finals for the second consecutive time. And the question that will follow this tournament into the history books, the one Deschamps put into the record at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, is not about Spain's quality or France's performance. It is about the referee. Does the referee have the level required to officiate a World Cup semifinal? He said he wouldn't answer it. He said you should ask yourselves. He was right to leave it open. With Argentina facing England in the other semifinal in New Jersey tomorrow, and the full weight of the 1986 Hand of God history, the Falklands neutrality framework, and everything this tournament's officiating story has already produced bearing down on a single match, we are absolutely not done with this story.